You're eyeing that brand new 3-row electric SUV, aren't you?
Oh, I'm sure they are.
Right. You're sitting there looking at your current gas guzzler thinking this new Hyundai Ioniq 9 is the ultimate futuristic family hauler for the next 10 years. And honestly, looking at the spec sheet, who could blame you?
It is very tempting.
It really is. You're ready to hand over your keys for a trade-in and step into something that promises to carry your entire extended family in absolute silent comfort. It's got that undeniable cutting-edge appeal, the thrill of instant acceleration, and of course, zero tailpipe emission. On paper, it just feels like the pinnacle of modern family transport.
It definitely looks incredible on paper. The ambition behind this vehicle it's staggering. But before you actually sign those trade-in papers, we really need to talk about what's actually happening under the floorboards of this specific car. Because while it might look like a leap into the future, early adopters are quickly finding out that they're essentially acting as unpaid beta testers for some incredibly complex and frankly frustratingly unpredictable electrical system.
Which is wild for a car in this price bracket.
Exactly. You're buying into the bleeding edge of technology, and we need to look at what that actually means for your daily life, your family road trips, and your wallet.
Completely agree. And according to the data I have, there's a serious amount of information to unpack here. But real quick, before we get into the literal nuts and bolts of this behemoth, please subscribe to the channel, like the video, and leave a comment down below. It really helps us keep bringing you these deep dives.
Please do.
So our mission today is simple. We're going to weigh that incredible silent acceleration and ambitious tech against the stark reality of owning a first-generation flagship electric vehicle. We want to give you the full picture so you know exactly what you're getting into.
Let's get into it.
So let's start with the absolute heart of the beast, the 800-volt electrical architecture. Here's where it gets really interesting. Because Hyundai heavily markets this system to give you blazing fast charging speeds.
Which is great.
It's amazing. Theoretically, you're taking this giant battery from 10% all the way to 80% in under 20 minutes if you're plugged into a 350 kilowatt DC fast charger. For a family road trip, getting back on the highway that fast is a total game changer.
It is a phenomenal party trick, and when it works flawlessly, it genuinely changes how you view road trips. But what's fascinating here is the underlying vulnerability that comes with managing that immense 800-volt system.
The vulnerability.
Right. Owners are finding out the hard way about a major systemic flaw with a component called the Integrated Charging Control Unit.
The ICCU.
The ICCU, exactly.
Hi.
Throughout the EV community, it has a terrible tendency to fail without much prior warning. And to understand why this matters, you have to look at what the ICCU actually does. Think of it like the power brick for your laptop. You can't plug your delicate laptop straight into a high-voltage wall outlet without frying it, right? The ICCU steps that massive 800-volt power from the floor battery down to a trickle, feeding it to the traditional tiny 12-volt battery that's still tucked up under the hood.
Wait, hold on. Let's back up for a second.
Sure.
If the main battery under the floor has enough juice to power a literal house for a week, why on earth is this cutting-edge car relying on a tiny 12-volt battery like the one in my old 1998 Honda Civic to stay alive?
It is one of the great ironies of modern electric vehicles. Even these highly advanced machines still rely on a standard 12-volt battery to run the basic electronics, the computers, the power windows, and crucially the safety.
Wow.
Yeah, the main battery is strictly for the motors and high-voltage climate control. Everything else is 12-volt. So when this ICCU pops or blows its internal fuse, the cascade of failure is immediate. It completely stops charging that 12-volt system. Imagine you're cruising down the interstate with your family, feeling completely fine, enjoying that quiet ride. Suddenly, your digital dashboard lights up like a holiday tree. We're talking catastrophic red alert warnings telling you to pull over immediately and stop driving.
Man, that is terrifying, especially with a car full of kids in the back. And it gets worse, right? Because once that tiny 12-volt battery drains completely, the car basically panics. The main high-voltage pack contactors physically open up to cut power for safety reasons.
Yes. The car isolates its own main power source to protect the electrical system from a perceived catastrophic short. And when that happens, you are left totally stranded on the side of the road with a 6,000-pound brick.
A very expensive brick.
I want to emphasize that word, brick. Once that 12-volt dies, you can't even roll down the windows. You can't unlock the doors from the outside. You can't even put the electronic transmission into neutral for the tow truck driver. You are completely locked out of the mechanical functions of your own vehicle.
So you're sitting on the side of a busy highway, and you can't even put the car in neutral. Getting this specific vehicle towed sounds like an absolute logistical nightmare.
It truly is. Because of the sheer immense weight of the vehicle and the completely flat aerodynamic floor design that houses the battery, you can't just drag this heavy weight onto a standard flatbed tow truck.
Right, because of the battery casing?
Exactly. If a tow truck driver tries to winch it up like a normal car, they risk severely damaging the underbelly or cracking the high-voltage battery casing. And if you crack that casing, you're looking at a catastrophic financial issue, often tens of thousands of dollars.
Just from a bad tow.
Just from a tow. Towing it requires specialized wheel dollies to lift the car off the ground without dragging the tires, making an already stressful breakdown a highly specialized, nerve-wracking recovery operation.
So you really are at the mercy of finding a tow operator who knows exactly how to handle a heavy EV. But let's take a breath and say you get lucky. Your charging unit is perfectly fine, and you dodge that ICCU bullet entirely. You still have to interact with the vehicle on a daily basis, and that brings us to the software.
Oh, the software.
Because if the hardware doesn't leave you stranded, the code running it might. Now, the screens in this car are undeniably stunning. It features these huge panoramic dual infotainment and gauge cluster screens. They're crisp, bright, and look gorgeous when they're working properly.
They are beautiful pieces of hardware, but they're plagued by the relentless software gremlins that seem to haunt modern smart cars. A very large number of daily drivers report the entire system freezing solid.
Just locking up.
Locking up completely.
Yeah.
Even worse, sometimes the screens go completely pitch black right in the middle of a route. If we connect this to the bigger picture, imagine you're navigating a complex. You're in the middle of a massive 5-lane highway interchange in a city you don't know.
That's my nightmare.
Right. You're relying entirely on the car's navigation to tell you which lane to be in, and suddenly your map just completely vanishes. You're left staring at a dark piece of reflective glass while hurtling down the highway at 70 miles per hour.
I can feel my heart rate spiking just thinking about that. Staring at a blank screen at highway speeds is incredibly distracting. But there's a manual fix for this, right? Some sort of hard reboot.
There's a manual workaround, yeah. Sometimes you can force a hard reset by holding down the volume and two knobs simultaneously for a few seconds. It forces the system to reboot, which might fix the issue temporarily.
But you're doing that while driving.
Exactly. You're doing it while trying to merge. Other times, it's a deeper software issue that requires an over-the-air software update to permanently patch.
Ah, the famous over-the-air updates. The car updating itself in your garage while you sleep, just like your smartphone does on your nightstand. But the irony here with this specific car is just too good.
It's unbelievable.
These updates frequently get stuck at 99% overnight in your garage. And because the car's computers are staying awake, frantically trying to finish that last 1% of the download, it ironically ends up completely draining that pesky little 12-volt battery all over again. It's like you just can't escape that 12-volt system.
It's a vicious cycle. The technology, specifically designed to fix the car's bugs, ends up disabling the car entirely. You wake up for the morning school run, and the car is completely dead in your driveway because it stayed up all night trying to install a patch for the radio.
It's brutal. Speaking of brutal, since we're talking about the financial realities and headaches of owning this thing, please remember to like the video, leave a comment below with your thoughts so far, and subscribe to the channel.
Honestly, you might need the money you save from our free deep dives just to afford the maintenance on this beast. Seriously. Which brings us perfectly to the physical hardware wear and tear. Let's say the screens work, the battery's fine, the update's finished, and you're ready to drive. What happens when you actually get this 6,000-pound computer move? Because this vehicle produces an immense amount of instantaneous electric.
Massive torque.
It has to, just to get all that weight moving from a standstill. And I'm not going to lie, it's incredibly fun to launch at a green light.
It is remarkably fun, but it comes with a severe physics and financial reality check. This isn't just a Hyundai problem. To be fair, this is a physics problem. When you take a 6,000-pound battery on wheels and give it the instant torque of a sports car, the only thing paying the price is the rubber meeting the road.
The tires just get shredded.
If you have a heavy right foot at every stoplight, you'll be chewing through your tires at an alarming rate. We're talking about completely wearing out specifically designed low rolling resistance tires in less than 15,000 miles. And I need you to understand, these aren't your standard cheap commuter car tires that you can pick up on a holiday discount. No, They are highly specialized. To keep that cabin so isolated from road noise, these specific EV tires have thick strips of acoustic, sound-deadening foam literally glued to the inside of them.
Exactly. The engineering is impressive. It absorbs the resonant frequencies of the road, but it makes replacements a tremendously painful hit to the wallet every single time you need a new set. You're easily looking at over $1,000 a year just in rubber. And it's not just the tires taking a beating from all that mass, it's the entire suspension system.
Which is such a shame, because everyone praises how beautifully tuned the suspension is. Reviewers say it feels like a soft magic carpet ride just glides over the pavement.
It does glide, but the components underneath that cabin are working absolute overtime. The heavy-duty rubber bushings, the upper shock mounts, and the lower control arms are constantly fighting to keep the body roll of this heavy mass in check every time you take a corner or hit the brakes.
So they wear out faster.
They're taking a severe beating on rough city streets. We're already seeing early, high-mileage reports pointing to premature clunking and popping noises over minor speed bumps.
And I imagine that gets significantly worse depending on the environment you live in, right? Like winter.
It does, especially in colder winter weather. When those heavy-duty rubber suspension components get freezing cold, they become stiff and unforgiving. Instead of absorbing the impact, they transfer it, which amplifies all those clunking and popping noises right under the floorboards.
Speaking of cold weather driving, let's talk about the exterior design, because you have to actually get into the car first. The flush-fitting aerodynamic pop-out door handles look incredibly sleek.
They look great.
It really adds to that futuristic vibe, and they definitely help reduce highway wind drag to maximize your battery range.
But this raises an important question about form versus function in extreme weather. They look fantastic in a warm, brightly lit showroom, but when you get a solid layer of freezing rain, sleet, or ice overnight, those little internal electric motors severely struggle to push the handle out so you can physically grab it.
Oh man, the imagery of this is brutal. You're locked out again, but this time it's not a dead battery. It's because the car just refuses to hand you the door handle. The neighbor's watching you try to pry your luxury car open with your bare hands. That's rough.
Precisely. You'll frequently find yourself standing outside your expensive, futuristic vehicle in the freezing cold, doing an embarrassing ice-scraping dance with your credit card or bare hands just to get inside your own car. It completely breaks the illusion of a premium luxury experience.
That's definitely not the futuristic morning routine anyone wants before the school run. But let's say you do win the battle with the door handle and get inside. The third row packaging in the cabin is actually quite generous for adults, which is a huge selling point for a family vehicle.
It's very roomy.
And to keep everyone warm, it uses an advanced heat pump system. Now, this is clever engineering. Instead of just using a giant electric heater that drains the battery, a heat pump moves heat around. It's explicitly designed to save your precious battery range during the winter by scavenging waste heat from the electric motors and the battery pack itself and pumping it into the cabin.
It is highly efficient in theory, and thermodynamics tells us it's the smart way to heat an EV. But the execution of that complex climate control system, especially routing that heat all the way to the very back of a 3-row SUV, can be wildly inconsistent.
Inconsistent how?
The heat pump occasionally suffers from faulty temperature sensors. This causes the system to get confused and blow slightly lukewarm or even chilly air straight into the third row when you specifically have it set to maximum heat.
So your kids in the very back are sitting there shivering on the way to school.
Yeah.
And diagnosing that issue at the dealership level has to be a massive headache, right?
It's an incredibly tedious diagnostic process. The thermal management system isn't just a simple heater core like in older gas cars. It features literal miles of complex coolant lines running throughout the vehicle, multiple mechanical switching valves, and separate heater cores for different zones. Finding the exact sensor or valve that's failing out of that entire maze requires significant time and expertise from the service department.
So you're leaving the car at the dealership for days just so they can figure out why the third row is freezing. And if the climate control sensors are a headache, don't even get me started on the advanced driver assistance systems, or ADS.
Right, the autonomous features.
These systems monitor your every move to keep you safe. The lane keep assist and the highway driving assist features are usually excellent on clearly marked roads. It really feels like the car is driving itself.
They're excellent until they encounter the messy reality of the real world. The exterior radar sensors and the windshield cameras are highly sensitive. They rely heavily on visual data. So everyday dirt, bug splatters, and road grime become critical failures.
Right, it doesn't take much. A little bit of wet mud splashing on the front bumper from a puddle, or a dirty streak right across the camera's field of view from a bad wiper blade can completely disable the entire adaptive cruise control system.
And here's the kicker. It doesn't just seamlessly hand control back to you with a polite notification. It throws aggressive, loud chime warnings at you until you physically pull over at a gas station, get out of the car, and meticulously wipe the sensors down with a microfiber cloth.
Wait, it aggressively chimes until you pull over. It doesn't just say, hey, radar disabled, you're in charge now.
In many reported cases, the system treats a blinded sensor as a critical safety fault, creating an incredibly stressful environment in the cabin until the lens is clear. It really highlights how delicate these visual systems are. And there's another fascinating mechanical quirk created by the modern electric vehicle driving experience, the regenerative braking system.
Now, conceptually, this is a great feature. It uses the electric motors in reverse to slow the car down and recapture energy, putting electricity back into the battery and extending your range. Most EV drivers love one-pedal driving.
It's fantastic for efficiency, but it creates a totally unique problem for the physical friction brakes. Let's break this down. Because the electric motors are doing almost all the stopping by acting as generators, your physical brake pads and rotors are basically sitting there unemployed.
Unemployed brakes.
Exactly. And just like anything made of bare iron that sits around unemployed in the rain, they rust. Over time, they develop a thick layer of surface rust very quickly, especially if you live in humid environments or areas that heavily use road salt in the winter.
So you're driving around with rusty brake rotors because the car is doing all the braking with the electric motors. But eventually someone cuts you off on the highway and you instinctively have to slam your foot on the physical brake pedal. What happens then?
When you finally do need to slam on the brakes in an emergency, your expectation is instant, smooth stopping power. Instead, you might hear a terrible, harsh grinding noise as those pads hit the uneven rust layer. More importantly, your stopping distance can be slightly compromised until that entire rust layer is aggressively scraped off by repeated heavy braking.
That sounds dangerous.
It's a startling experience if you aren't expecting it, and it feels like the car is failing you right when you need it most.
That is a lot of hidden quirks to deal with, and we haven't even touched on the glass yet. The huge glass panoramic roof on this SUV makes the interior feel incredibly open and airy. It's a beautiful design choice, but there are known issues where the internal electric motor for the sunshade burns out prematurely.
Yes, the fabric of the sunshade gets slightly misaligned in its tracks, it jams up, and the motor simply burns itself out trying to force it closed. You're left with a stuck shade, leaving you and your family completely exposed to the blazing summer sun, baking the interior.
Not ideal.
Not at all. And looking at the front windows, they use specialized acoustic laminated glass to reduce wind noise. That's part of how they achieve that super quiet ride we talked about. However, that specific glass has shown early signs of delamination.
Delamination, you mean the layers are actually separating?
Exactly. You'll actually see tiny, ugly air bubbles forming right between the layers of the glass, usually starting near the edges. It doesn't necessarily shatter, but it distorts the view and looks terrible.
That does not look great on a flagship vehicle that costs this much money. So, bringing it all together, here is the final balance we're looking at with this car. When everything works together in perfect harmony, the Ioniq 9 is a truly fantastic and highly ambitious piece of modern engineering. The instant acceleration, the zero tailpipe emissions, the gorgeous design, it's all there.
It's all there, but you absolutely have to be prepared for the reality of this. Owning a first-generation flagship electric vehicle means you are adopting cutting-edge technology. And as the saying goes, with the bleeding edge always comes a few drops of blood. You have to carefully weigh the luxury of the cabin against the very real possibility of random software glitches, extremely heavy tire wear, and complex thermal management quirks. If you buy this car, you are going to be on a first-name basis with your local dealership service advisor.
That's just the reality of making a massive technological computer on wheels your daily driver for the morning school run. And before we let you go for the final time today, if you found this deep dive helpful, please like the video, leave a comment with your thoughts on these issues, and subscribe to the channel. We love bringing this data to you and helping you make informed decisions.
Thanks for listening.
We want to leave you with a provocative closing thought to mull over. When a vehicle becomes more of a highly complex computer on wheels than a traditional mechanical car, at what point does the luxury of living in the future stop outweighing the stress of being its unpaid beta tester? Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. See you next time.